All right, so in our second video here, we're going to look at fractions, but we're going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. So I'll just give you a quick intro on multiplying fractions. Let's imagine I have 1/2 multiplied by 1/4. All right, so multiplying fractions is the easiest of all fraction manipulation. So we multiply 1 times 1 and we multiply 2 times 4. So it's quite easy. You're going to multiply the numerators and you're going to multiply the denominators. So multiplication fractions is quite easy. So here you're just going to multiply these, okay? So you can do that with multiplication. And then I'll give you a quick example of dividing the difference. So if you multiply here, we get 1/8. Now imagine I have 1/2 divided by 1/4, okay? So they look kind of the same, but in dividing fractions, we need to keep this fraction here the same. We need to take this division here and change it to multiplication. So here I do that. And this 1/4 here, what we're going to do is we're going to switch the denominator and the numerator so we get 4/1. So notice the 4 goes up and the 1 goes down. And now, if you know how to do multiplication like I've shown you here, we know that we should times the numerators together, so 1 times 4. And we should multiply the denominators together, which is 2 times 1. And of course, you should ask yourself, well, what's 4 divided by 2? That is 2. All right. So this here, we're doing multiplication here. All right. Here we're multiplying, and here we're dividing. Okay. So you have an example of each one. Now, if you look at our example, the first example here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to bring it down here so it's easier to see. Okay. What we have is we have a mixed number, which is the 1 1/4 times by a proper fraction 5/9. So if you look at my tip here, I have when you multiply or divide mixed fractions, you must change them first to improper fractions. So you must know how to change 1 1/4 to an improper fraction. And I showed it in the last video, but I'll show it again. It's simple. We take the denominator 4, and I'm going to go 4 times 1, okay, which is 4. And then I'm going to add the 1 on top here. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and we keep the 4 the same there. So now I've changed my 1 1/4 to an improper fraction. I'm going to rewrite this one here, which we have 5/9. And now it's very simple. We're just going to multiply the numerators here together, and we're going to multiply the denominators together. So 5 times 5 is 25, and 9 times 4 is 36. And we should ask ourselves after all the time, can I reduce this fraction? Now I know that 25 and 36 do not have a common factor, so this here is going to be my final answer, so I put a box around it here. So that's my final answer for this one. That's how you multiply a mixed number against a proper fraction. You first got to change this to a improper fraction, okay? So that's question 1 here. Let's grab question number 2, which is E, and I'm going to put it right here, okay? So first thing you'll notice is there's brackets here, and with the brackets, they don't do very much. They're just trying to keep this negative number in here. So one of the ideas that we talked about earlier on in this course is this 2/5 is a positive number, and we're going to divide that by a negative number. So you must know what a positive divided by a negative number is, and that's a negative number. So I know my solution here is going to be negative, okay? So for now, I'm not going to worry about the negative sign. I know that at the end, whenever I find out the solution, I got to make sure that my answer is going to be negative, okay? So if I rewrite this, I'm going to have 2/5 divided by negative 2/3, okay? And if I feel like it, I can put the brackets just to keep this negative kind of hidden away from the division sign. And then I showed you up here how to do divide. So we're going to keep the first fraction the same, and then the sign, we're going to switch that, and then the final fraction, we're going to flip it. So a lot of people use in English KSF, keep, switch, flip. So I'm going to keep 2 over 5. So let me just use a different color here. 2 over 5. So that's going to be my keep. My switch is going to be the division to a multiplication sign. And my flip is going to be 2 over 3. It's going to change to 3 over 2. And if you say, well, what happens with the negative sign? The negative sign, it just stays in front of this number here. And if you like, again, I can put brackets so the negative sign isn't hugging against the multiplication sign. All right. So when we do this, now we have this very simple idea that, once again, at the very top here, I showed you, we can go 2 times 3. And remember, I told you that this is positive and this is negative, so our answer is going to be negative. So I'll do that right away. Look, negative. This positive number times by negative number is going to give me a negative number. So here it was division, which I told you is going to give a negative number. Even with a keep, switch, flip, we still get a negative number, which is good. It's exactly how I said earlier on in the stage here. So 2 times 3 is 6. So I put a 6 here. 5 times 2 is 10. And we know that a positive times a negative gives me my negative sign, which I have here. Now, the question I ask is, can I reduce 6 over 10? And we can. So I have to ask myself, 6 divided by what number and 10 divided by what number can reduce this fraction? Well, I know that 6 is divisible by 2, 10 is divisible by 2, so my final answer reduced should be, well, 6 divided by 2 is, and don't forget your negative sign, remember, it's a negative number. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my final answer, if I put a box around it, is negative 3 over 5. Okay, so if you look at that, the negative sign didn't do much. We just carried it through, and at the end we have a negative number. Okay, so don't get worried about the negative number. You just have to know for sure what happens when you multiply or divide a positive and a negative number. Okay, if you don't know that, then you better look it up. Do some extra studying on that. Okay, finally we have this last one. Let me grab it. I'm going to bring it down here. Okay. A fresh piece of the screen. Okay. And this one's a little bit more complicated because you have a whole number divided by a mixed number. So the first thing we're going to do is change this whole number to a fraction. So 9 is like saying 9 over 1. Now I have a fraction, which is good. But I have 2 1/3, which is a little bit annoying. I need to have either an improper fraction or a proper fraction. So what I'm going to do again is change this 2 1/3 to a improper fraction. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So I'm going to rewrite this as 9 over 1 divided by 7 over 3. All right. So now look at what I got, a fraction divided by a fraction. There's no whole pieces, which makes it a lot easier for us to work with. Okay. Now I'm going to do my keep, switch, flip. I'm going to keep 9 over 1. I'm going to switch my sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip 7 over 3 to 3 over 7. And now it makes it much easier to multiply. We're going to multiply the top here, which is the numerator, with each other. So 9 times 3 is 27. And then I can multiply the bottom, which is 1 times 7, which is 7 here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep this as an improper fraction for the time being. If you want to know how this is as a mixed fraction, well, we can change it back to a mixed fraction. 27 divided by 7, if you use your calculator, we'll find out that it goes in at least 3 times, okay? And then what we need to do is find the remainder. So if I go 3 times 7 here, I get 21, all right? And that means from 21 to 27, I'm 6 away from reaching my limit of 27. So if you go 27 minus 21, you'll realize quickly that you get 6. And that's the remainder. So I'm going to have 6 as my remainder. That's what we put on the top. And 7 we keep the same. So if you want to change it to a mixed number, there you go. All right, so just to recap, each one of these questions, if you have a mixed number with a whole piece, you have to change that to an improper fraction. If they give you a whole piece like 9, well, that's very simple. You put it over 1. And then if you have another mixed fraction, of course, we have to change that to an improper fraction, what we did here. So multiplication, top times the top, bottom times the bottom. Division, keep, switch, flip, like I showed you here. Okay, so there's how we do some simple multiplying and dividing of fractions.